Hey everybody, it's Robert coming to you with another adventure into history, and on this video we're going to be exploring one of the most desolate, rough terrained places that is around our part of Georgia down here in Talbot County. This place is known as Rough Edge, and it has been known as Rough Edge ever since the early settlers got here, and is definitely deserving of its name. Now, if you're a frequent viewer of this channel, you'll know that we've been in Rough Edge quite a few times exploring the forgotten history here, and there is a lot of it. This place never saw electricity. The early settlers moved in here, and then not too long after they left, just because this is nothing but hills and rock and extremely hard land to farm. There are many abandoned home sites here, many cemeteries, and again, these roads back here are some of the roughest. So on this video, I've got the opportunity to test out this 2021 Jeep Gladiator on some of these rough roads. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to hop in the Jeep, throw the top back, and get to exploring. All right, so top is off, and so are we diving in here to Rough Edge. Now, anytime that I think of four-wheel driving or going off-road, this is the place that I think of, even though technically this isn't even off-road. These are all still county roads. And I think we're going to make several stops at different historic places through here, and I think that I've just found our first stop. Let me throw this into reverse, and I'll show you what I see here. So dead ahead is the road that runs through Rough Edge, and this road began as, nothing more than like a Native American trail, later became a buggy road, until today that we can drive down it. Well, we can drive down it most of the time. This road still gets really washed out. But over here is an even older alignment of this road. This would have probably been the original wagon road through here. And we often talk about old road beds, and this is probably the best example, or one of the best examples, of an old road bed around here. A lot of times the old road beds can be kind of harder to see on video, but that's definitely not going to be the case with this one. You can see this is definitely an old road here. I mean, look how steep those banks are. So this is probably one of the earliest alignments of this road. It's literally walking along the edge of a small cliff here to get back here. But this is probably going to be one of the earliest alignments of this road back when it was nothing but a buggy road here. You can see a lot of it is washed out where just water's been running through it and cutting it even further down. But how impressive is that? And the reason that these roads become so low like this is over time of consistently being graded. Every time you grade the road, it goes lower and lower and lower. And these roads, are originally just maintained by guys with shovels and a mule with a pan to dig these out and smooth them out. So over the years, you can tell the age of a road by how steep the banks are. Also, in the early days, when it came to these roads, whichever one wasn't washed out at the time was the one they used. So say if the road that the Jeep is sitting on right now was washed out, they'd switch to using this one, then go back and forth until the time that the county came along and determined that this was the official road. Now, if we follow this back out, I think we can see where this road bed comes back in to the modern road. And even this modern road is old. You can see how much it's been cut down. And it's also to note that this area has been noted as being haunted since just about the earliest days of the first settlers coming here. So, y'all keep your eyes out. See if you catch anything that I miss. And we're still running beside that other road bed there. But right here, we can actually see where it joins in with the main road, I believe. Let's take a look real quick. All right, so modern road here. And again, you can step right into these woods, which is easier said than done because they are thick right here. And we can see that the modern road, or the old road rather, you can see the banks of it through the trees there. The old road came right in through here, and that's where it joined in to the modern road way back when. And I know old road beds aren't the most exciting thing that I've ever showed on Adventures into History, but I think it's still important history to note these old paths that the settlers took. Sometimes we're driving on the same roads that they took, like a lot of the case here in Rough Edge with these old roads. Other times they took abandoned paths, and that's what we're seeing there. We've got an abandoned alignment and then a modern alignment that's still very old. Let's keep going. So a little bit of details on this Jeep. This is a 2021 Jeep Gladiator Mojave. This is actually a manual transmission model, which is pretty cool. I've never driven a manual that's this new, so the clutch feels completely different from all of the old cars that were manual that I've driven. But so far, so good. And here we're coming up again on old alignment of this road, and you can tell that this is the original old road bed by how deep these banks are. But I think it's just a beautiful area out here. You can see over there the trees have recently had a controlled burn, so you can see all the fresh green growth that's growing up under these pine trees. And here we go again with some of this road that's washed out. Nothing this Jeep can't handle though. So this is this road is always the one that everyone tells you you're not ever supposed to go to Rough Edge alone, for multiple reasons. For one, because it's just about as far in the middle of nowhere as you can get in 2024. But also the roads here can be absolutely impassable. So far so good though. Nothing that this Jeep can't handle. And nothing more than just a few bumps and a little bit of a rough ride. It's hard to film and drive and shift gears. Now what we're coming up on here is one of the coolest features, I guess you'd call it, out here to me. This is obviously a very old alignment of the road here, and the banks are cut so deep through here, and this, we're getting a little bit rougher here. Now, no trip to Rough Edge would be complete without going to go visit Colonel Blackman's final resting place, and that is right over here in this amazing brick-walled cemetery. And these bricks were all made locally on Colonel Blackman's plantation out of the local red clay. So, you know, you can really consider these are slave-made bricks that were made, again, out of the clay that we were driving in, or the dirt that we were driving on. This is an old plantation cemetery. There are burials of people who were enslaved out through there. And then Colonel Blackman and his family are in this wall here. These are some of the earliest burials out here in Talbot County. This is Colonel Blackman's grave here. He died in 1831. And we've done a full video on Colonel Blackman, this cemetery, and also his old home place. Colonel Blackman died when he accidentally shot himself with a fowling gun. So think of like a shotgun. And then this is the grave of young Dr. Brewster here that has an epitaph on it. So I think that reading this epitaph definitely always sets the mood for Rough Edge. It's appropriately dark and kind of spooky. It says, in the 24th year of his age is when he died in 1836. He sleeps wrapped in the cold vestments of death. He left light's brightening scene for the soft gloom of this earth-walled grass-covered little room, where sorrow comes not, where he ne'er can know, again life's life, devoted to the doom of death. The bright sun which once illuminated his way now throws its glance on his cold turf alone, and the life-inspiring air which he once breathed now only lifts the green grass near his grave. The place which knew him shall know him no more forever. Then at the bottom it says, Reader. That's us. Reader, he has tasted death, as thou must, and shortly too. He is launched on the boundless ocean of eternity. Prepare to meet thy certain doom. Now that's an absolutely amazing epitaph. I've never seen one quite like that one before. You know, we've seen the ones that say, you know, something like, as he is, soon you shall must be, but this one is a lot more detailed than that, obviously, and it definitely sets a tone for all of Rough Edge here. And I think that it's interesting. It's an interesting place. There's a certain feel in the air here, and I think it's, you know, largely due to the people who came here. They left not long after, and just kind of this place fell into abandonment. And of course, the final death for the farms and homes and people living out here was, of course, the boll weevil. When it came through, any farms that were remaining up here that, you know, lost all of their cotton crops, the timber industry came through shortly after the boll weevil and bought farms for pennies of the dollar due to all the failed crops. And this area has been timberland pretty much ever since. All right, so now we're just up the road, and we're actually right beside Colonel Blackman's old home site. Now we'll be stopping by and saying hey to Colonel Blackman in just a minute on this video, but Colonel Blackman's home is right up there, and I haven't been up there in a while, so I want to show it to you on this video. But first, we're going to make use of the tailgate here on this Gladiator, because I have to put on my shoes. At the risk of ridicule in the comments, I've been wearing Crocs on today's video, and apparently I got into some fire ants over there back with Dr. Brewster, because yeah, not too pleasant. Time to switch to the boots. Time to put on the real exploring shoes. I should probably add, just for the sake of entertaining people in the comments, that those aren't even Crocs. They're Walmart knockoff Crocs. So I think, what is that? They're Mocs, maybe. And as fun as it is having the top of this Jeep down in the places with no shade, I'm getting baked by the Georgia sun. So Captain Reedy's home used to stand right up here. You can see the large trees. This little section, it doesn't look like it's ever been timbered. See the large tree that was once in front of his house, and the terraced wall right here. Terraced wall for the front yard of the house. And it looks like the opening had two old cedar trees growing on either side of the opening going up to his house there. Also, I just want you to see these big old roots coming off of this big tree right here. Well terraced wall there, or well stacked wall that creates a terrace. And then I reckon this is where Captain Reedy's actual house stood. That looks like a chimney pile right there ahead of me. So Captain Reedy lived out his days in Rough Edge right in this spot right here. You can actually still see the ground is terraced in a square right there in the exact footprint of his house. And if we step just over here, we can see the creepy open well where Captain Reedy used to get his water. Oh man, and that is a deep one right there. That is deep and creepy, with a cedar tree growing right beside it. Back away from creepy old wells and old ghost houses. Back to the Jeep. Just down the road is the man himself, Captain Reedy, his final resting place. We've covered a lot of different cemeteries recently that were vandalized over the years by grave robbers or just vandals, or like people stealing cedar trees from the cemeteries. Captain Reedy's grave was actually dug up one time. That's what this pile of dirt here is. This dirt was brought in, I believe, to refill his grave. Someone came through here and dug up Captain Reedy's grave, but Captain Reedy is actually, his remains were interred in a rock vault. So they got down to rock, broke their shovel, and gave up. But here's the grave of Captain Reedy, and again, this is something else that we filmed before and done some interesting videos on him and his story. He actually died in Harris County, Georgia. I think he was living in Waverly Hall with one of his sons, if I'm not mistaken. I could be mistaken, at the time of his death, and had abandoned the old home place that we just saw. Captain William Reedy, born in Chester County, South Carolina, November 4th, 1792. And there are quite a few burials out here in the Reedy Cemetery. There's all sorts of box tombs around, and many burials marked only with fieldstone. And again, the depth of the old road here is just something else. All right, so now once we pass Captain Reedy's final resting place, then the question is, can we make it back out of Rough Edge? So far into it, relatively close to the end, but this is the part where it can get real sketchy. So far it's been good though. I think the county's come in and done some work on it and maintained it since we've had all the rains. And believe it or not, it definitely doesn't look like it, but we are actually still on an old county road right now. This is just another part of Rough Edge. And this road obviously does not see much traffic. Of course, you'll see why towards the end of the video, but this one's pretty cool too. A little bit rougher than what we just went through. Beautiful, beautiful wild roses, but also probably signs that there was a home site nearby. I've seen some other plants that indicate that there was probably an old home site here. There's honeysuckle too. Those are beautiful. Over here on this side we have some more, but we also have the telltale privet hedge that often indicates where a home site was. Oh, and then if you watch my other channel, Old Bird Farm, you'll know I absolutely hate this stuff. We've got wisteria growing all throughout these trees here. So definitely signs that there was a home site back here. All right, and here's our first bridge that we're coming up on. This one's not quite as impressive as the next one we'll see, but I think it's still worth taking a look at it. I think it's worth taking a look at this bridge for the sole fact that this is a relatively modern concrete bridge on a road that does not see a lot of traffic at all. And it's interesting that the county chose to put this here, whereas on down the road you'll see a different story. But a beautiful little spot and a beautiful little creek here. And I wonder what kind of bridge was here originally. You know, of course there was something that predated this. This is another old road. But I don't think that it's quite as old as what we drove further back in Rough Edge. This may be a newer alignment, and there's probably an original road that's somewhere out there. But you can see this one is built up versus being cut down like the other ones are. Let's see, we'll walk through all the poison ivy and all of that and look under this bridge, see if maybe we can get some kind of an idea. Yeah, just as I thought there might be. There's an old foundation for an old bridge right there. See that fieldstone stacked foundation right there? Probably an old wooden bridge. Could have even been a covered bridge right here. This was, that foundation is pretty substantial. So it was a sizable bridge that used to be here. Again, in looking at the old roads, or what's left of the old roads that the early settlers and people who lived here not that long ago used to take. There's so much out in these woods that's forgotten about, from, you know, the old plantations to the old tenant farmer houses, old mills even. And it's amazing what life probably used to look like. I think there were more people that lived actually on this side of Rough Edge than the side in which we started, at least to say that they lived here longer than the people on the other side. Now let's keep going. Right there running beside this road, there is an old roadbed. And just barely see its banks there. So it kind of answers the question as to the alignment of this road. It probably did change at some time. And for there to be a county maintained road here, there certainly had to have been quite a bit of traffic through here at one time. And I would say almost to modern times with that modern concrete bridge. But we've got something else that tells us a little story right here. So there's probably the last remaining old home site standing out here. And it looks like this was lived in, again, until relatively modern times. And when I say that, I'm meaning, you know, post-1900, maybe up until the 50s or 60s. Just looking at the construction that was done on this, it also looks like it may have been converted or even used as a barn at one time from some of what I'm seeing on the construction of it there. But I see some newer building materials used on it. Now this one is very clearly posted, so unfortunately we're not going to be able to get a closer look at it at this time. Maybe sometime in the future we'll be able to get permission to take a look at this old home. But it's there, and it's an unusual shape. It's a long home, almost like what I would consider a barn or something like that versus, you know, our regular tenant farmer houses that we see. I've also got a front yard that is quickly overgrowing in wisteria. And the wisteria has taken hold of all of the trees all around this place. That's some bad stuff. But if you can say one redeeming thing about wisteria from a historic perspective, it definitely shows us old home sites, although it also covers them right up. But there it is. Kind of a spooky old place, honestly. I know people say that I overuse the word creepy, but something looking at it like this, just kind of a unsettling old house. But at one time, it was someone's home, and that's all it is someone's home that's fallen into abandonment. So the roads have been surprisingly good today through Rough Edge. We haven't really faced too much off-road obstacles, but I think we've gotten this Jeep sufficiently dirtier than it was to start with, so that's a plus. And I'm not covered in mud, so that's a plus too. Now let's get on down the road to another spooky site. I think this one's even more spooky than that right there. It's kind of a skeleton. And lastly, we have reached the end of the line here for our exploration today. No matter how good an off-roader we have, I just don't think we're going to be able to make it across this spooky skeleton of a bridge here. Well, the Jeep can't, but I can. It's crazy to think that this used to be a public road here, and people used to probably semi-regularly travel here, travel across this bridge. It's definitely a spooky thing to see come up at a road and just see an old abandoned bridge. And of course we can't keep going because that side is posted no trespassing. But I have heard tell from Dan, so you know it's right, that there's actually an old cemetery down this road that we can't get to. It apparently began as a burial ground for enslaved people, and then, just as so many that we've seen, continue to be used by their descendants. But maybe one day we'll be able to find that one. Unfortunately, it won't be today. If there's ever a place that Pig Boy probably lives, it's definitely here. Let's see what the old sign said. Guess that was an old weight limit sign. Well, I think weight limit is about 0 now. Well, maybe not. Weight limit's probably what? Around 180 pounds, I reckon. All right, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this exploration through Rough Edge. This is an amazing place, and definitely the perfect place to test out a new off-roader. So hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we will see you next time on another adventure into history.